Well, switching gears, the maker of Pop-Tarts and Pringles said that they are removing all synthetic dyes from their foods. Yeah, people who eat Pop-Tarts and Pringles were like, good, because my health is very important to me.
And there it is, your obligatory, obvious attempt at humor from the late-night comedians. Well, you know, that is a good sign. When it's gotten that far down the food chain that dyes are being removed from Pringles and Pop-Tarts, we're going to finally get to see what our food looks like. And maybe people will stop eating it. Welcome to the Chris Plante Show. It's Mike Opelka. Late night is becoming a wasteland, is it not? And how long before the networks wake up and say, we're going to save millions and tens of millions of dollars by not doing this anymore? So interesting, isn't it? So we are watching the culture change in front of us. We are watching a societal shift. And maybe, just maybe, even the Overton window is moving back towards the center because, let's face it, during the last administration, the Overton window got shoved really far left. It's Mike Opelka in for Chris Plante on the Chris Plante Show. We have a boatload of stuff to get to today. Some of it infuriating, some of it educational, some of it laughable. And I'm talking about Democrats say the darndest things. Yes, we will have another episode of Democrats say the darndest things coming up just a little bit later in the program. I do want to try and make sure that we cover everything because I've been reviewing the cable networks during the breaks and seeing what they're all covering. And over on CNN and MSNBC, they're all wrapped up in the fact that Donald Trump was told that his name was in the Epstein files back in May. He was told this. And they even asked him about it, and he said it was just a weird, short briefing. But now that it's on the cover of the Wall Street Journal and it's on the cover of the New York Times, it's going to make more news for the left side of the mainstream media. And, of course, we have Ghislaine Maxwell, who has been subpoenaed to testify at a House hearing. That will happen via Zoom. So she is going to reportedly testify on August 11th. I'm sure there's going to be an interesting lead up to that. Aren't we in the middle of recess? So why August 11th? I thought the House was done until September. We'll find out what's going on. The committees, I guess, will be hanging around. We'll see what happens with that. And then Ron Klain. Yes, Ron Klain from the Biden White House is going to be testifying today. And we can give you the credible preview of his testimony to basically any question other than your name and your job title. The rest of it's going to be under the advice of counsel. I respectfully invoke my Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. That's the whole thing. You know, I rarely credit the British legal system, but at least the Brits have done it more efficiently. They don't go through the whole Fifth Amendment thing. All they do is say no comment, no comment, no comment. That's their thing. But no, we're going to hear this over and over again. I don't know why. I don't know why we do this. It is a show, and it should be. You should come in and say, all right, I'm under oath, and I'm not going to tell you anything. Let's stop wasting everyone's time. Keep walking. Keep moving. We'll see what happens. I do have a more follow-up on the AutoPen because the left isn't covering the AutoPen. And I do think there is some hope that there will be some accountability as relates to Joe Biden's administration of pardons, etc., via the AutoPen. And the only one that he really actually signed, the only pardon he signed, was Hunter's. So it feels like that is the only one that should stand. But we'll see what happens on that. We will get the latest on that. But yesterday was the big day. Yesterday was the day that Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, came out and dropped what some in the media have called a nuke on the White House. Dropped the equivalent of a nuclear bomb on in the White House, but really on the Obama administration, on the former president of the United States. A little sample of what was delivered.
Any of this new information implicates former President Obama in criminal behavior?
We have referred and will continue to refer all of these documents to the Department of Justice and the FBI to investigate the criminal implications of this.
For even former President Obama?
Correct. The evidence that we have found and that we have released directly point to President Obama leading the manufacturing of this intelligence assessment. There are multiple pieces of evidence and intelligence that confirm that fact.
So the DNI asked about this, and yes, there has been a referral to the Department of Justice, and we have been told that there has been a strike force assembled that will dig deeper and deeper and deeper. Now, does that mean anything's going to happen? Does that mean we'll see any actual perp walking of people? The questions are out there, and we all want to know. We all like to see somebody face some sort of accountability on this. Bill O'Reilly, remember him? I think he's got a podcast out there somewhere. Bill O'Reilly was on News Nation last night, where he regularly appears, talking about who he thinks could be indicted over all of these fraudulent intelligence reports.
So the Tulsi Gabbard drop of classified information that's now declassified, the headline in there is that John Brennan, former director of the CIA, is in trouble. And I believe he will be indicted. And the telling part of this is that, and this is, I'm quoting from the report from the Select Committee on Intelligence, the House Select Committee, is that Brennan knowingly, all right, published 3 reports containing information that was, quote, unclear, of uncertain origin, potentially biased or implausible. If that's true, and we need to give Mr. Brennan due process, he's going to be charged.
Well, you also need to prove.
So they'll present that evidence in front. They'll present the evidence in front of a grand jury. Now the others, Comey and it's not quite as clear.
Mm-hmm. It's not. But this may be the case, and I think we were making this case yesterday, and some of you agreed that it looks like Brennan is the guy who is most likely to achieve some sort of indictment. That may be on his yearbook picture. Most likely to achieve. Because what do we know? What did we learn yesterday? Paul Sperry from Real Clear Investigations was talking to our dear friend Vince Colonnese, and he talked about 3 really important issues that they've discovered. Number one, that the Steele dossier, discredited, funded by Hillary Clinton's campaign, long believed to be a giant truckload of Bravo Sierra. The Steele dossier was included in the main body of the intelligence, even though it had been discredited. It had been included in that. That in itself should have cast a great pall upon this entire report and movement. They changed the level of confidence in the Steele dossier and into the information from, we're not confident in this, to high level of confidence. That's how it was upgraded. So how did that happen? And now the third thing that Paul Sperry talked about, and this, I think this is one of the things that is the most encouraging, is that whistleblowers are now starting to come forward. I think we're starting to see some people realize that this thing is not going to stop, that this administration is not going to, and let's face it, we're just in the 7th month of this administration. And Tulsi Gabbard has just gotten here in very short order to this point. When you think of all the investigations that went on in the previous years, you think of all the GOP investigations that yielded nothing so far, This one, in less than, I guess, 3 or 4 months, has suddenly put out some incredible findings that makes it seem like this reaches all the way back to the Barack Hussein Obama administration. And we'll see if anything comes of it. I'm dubious until we actually see indictments come down. There have to be grand juries that will have to be impaneled. We'll see if something happens there. I'm not sure. But I do believe Brennan would be the guy. Brennan would be the guy who is definitely brought out. They're not going to put him in handcuffs, but they will indict him. If anyone gets indicted, I think he is the first one to do this. DNI Gabbard yesterday also had a couple of interesting moments as she was dropping truth bombs. One of those happened when CNN, who you really got to question who's in charge at CNN. CNN was cutting away actually as this press briefing was happening. CNN walked away from it as Tulsi Gabbard was putting out what I think is historic information.
Multiple intelligence community assessments released in the months leading up to the November 2016 election concluded that Russia had neither the intent nor capability to impact the outcome of the U.S. election. On December 5th...
We've been listening there to the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi.
Now, just listen to when they cut in on that. Let's go back to that. That moment, somebody at CNN goes, "Oh, we better get out of this." I wish we had the feed from the anchor's ear.
Multiple intelligence community assessments released in the months leading up to the November 2016 election concluded that Russia had neither the intent nor capability to impact the outcome of the U.S. election.
Multiple reports. Russia had neither the intent nor the capability to affect the outcome. And we all remember what the networks, CNN and MSNBC, were saying. Oh, Russia, Russia, Russia. It's Putin, Putin, Putin. Trump's an asset. And then I think it was Jim Sciutto. Somebody whispered in his ear, "You got to get out of this."
On December 5th.
We've been listening there to the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, continuing on what has now been a multi-day effort, not only with public statements like this, but release of documents to attempt to back up the quite extreme allegation that President Obama is guilty of treason and that he worked in some sort of conspiracy with Hillary Clinton, etc., in the assessment by the intelligence community at the time that Russia interfered in the 2016 election.
So the statements by Tulsi Gabbard are considered to be extreme allegations, never mind the fact that she's releasing documents. Never mind that there are hundreds of pages of documents, and we're told there will be more documents coming. Never mind all that. You're going to call them extreme allegations. Corrupt news network, CNN. And we'll get to the Caitlin Collins comments, too, because Caitlin Collins was in the White House, and her questions of the DNI and her question that was also answered by the press secretary, and the answers were so insane that Meghan McCain has called for the removal of the press credentials from Caitlin Collins. Meghan McCain, that's how crazy things are. Meghan McCain wants Caitlin Collins' credentials removed. I don't think that's going to happen. Frankly, I think it's a good battle. We should look forward to seeing that battle every day, because I think we've got better brains that are being deployed against the mainstream media. We'll see what comes up. You're welcome to join us, 888-630-9625. It's Mike Opelka in for Chris Plante on The Chris Plante Show.
Chris here with a list of things that none of us should trust. The Washington Post, the New York Times, anything on CNN. Here's a list of things that I do trust. The Washington Times. Support real journalism for just $1 a week at washingtontimes.com/Chris.
It is the Chris Plante Show. Mike Opelka subbing for my pal who's on vacation, returns next Tuesday. Yesterday, big day. You had the press secretary, you had the Director of National Intelligence facing off in the briefing room. Tulsi Gabbard dropping serious truth bombs. that point directly to Barack Obama and his second level of lieutenants in the deep state, and it looks like they certainly were concocting something that was going to hamper the president-elect and then the president going forward in 2016, 2017, and you know what happened beyond that. Yesterday, Caitlin Collins asked a couple of questions. What about the Senate bipartisan intelligence report that Marco Rubio signed? And then what about why wasn't the report, the evidence released, going after Hillary Clinton? And the press secretary stepped in.
First, on Secretary Rubio, he put out a statement in 2020 following that Senate Intelligence Committee report, and he said what they found is troubling. We found irrefutable evidence of Russian meddling, which the Director of National Intelligence just confirmed for all of you, that Russia was trying to sow distrust and chaos. But what's the outrage in this that Secretary Rubio did not say at the time, the Democrats were saying at the time, is the fact that the intelligence community was concocting this narrative that the president colluded with the Russians, that the president's son was holding secret meetings with the Russians. All of these lies that were never true.
Never true. Never proved true. Remember all of the stories about the meetings, there was a meeting at Trump Tower, all of that, the exchange of information. We have information from the Hillary Clinton campaign, all of those lies. None of that true.
And he also said at that time, we discovered deeply troubling actions taken by the FBI under Comey, particularly their acceptance and willingness to rely on the Steele dossier without verifying its methodology or sourcing. The Steele dossier that many outlets in this room ran as the gospel truth, and it was cooked up and paid for by the Clinton campaign. As for your second question, Caitlin, I think who is saying that she would release this to try to boost her standing with the president? Who?
Caitlin Collins made the allegation that all of this information being released is in order to make Tulsi Gabbard more friendly to the president, more likable to the president.
Who has said that?
Well, the president has publicly undermined her when it came to Iran. He said she was wrong. He told me that she didn't know what she was talking about. That was on Air Force One on camera.
The only people who are suggesting that the Director of National Intelligence would release evidence to try to boost her standing with the president are the people in this room who constantly try to sow distrust and chaos amongst the president's cabinet, and it is not working. I will just answer your question directly. I am with the President of the United States every day. He has the utmost confidence in Director Gabbard. He always has. He continues to. And that is true of his entire cabinet, who is all working as one team to deliver on the promises this president made.
I would love to have somebody like the press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, in my court. I would love to have her as my backup on everything. She's got the president's back. She has everybody on the team's back. And the one amazing thing, she does it all without the binder. Remember the KJP binder? Cringe and flipping through the plastic pages to get to what she's supposed to say? This woman does it just from her brain because she's smart like that. All right, I'm taking a break. It's Mike Opelka in for Chris Plant. We'll get to the phones just around the corner on the Chris Plant Show. Welcome back to the Chris Plant Show. Mike Opelka in for Chris. He returns Tuesday. We're trying desperately to get to everything and also include many of you who are weighing in today at 888-630-9625. The president, Donald Trump, busy afternoon yesterday meeting with the AI people. We'll get to some of the clips from that. There were some really epic moments there yesterday. And today, President Trump is headed over to the Federal Reserve. He is going to tour the Federal Reserve offices. And CNN was very upset about that earlier. I just was scanning headlines earlier in the hour, and CNN was reporting that Trump is going over there. And the chyron on the screen, the titles on the screen read, "Trump to tour Fed after insulting Chairman Powell." Really? Nothing about the $2.4 billion that Powell has reportedly spent in taxpayer money to redecorate the Federal Reserve building? Nothing about that? I don't think you should be allowed to spend that much money if you're in your last year of your 10-year gig. It just seems like that's irresponsible. That maybe somebody should sign off on that. We'll see what happens. We'll get to any updates on that. That's not going to happen until later this afternoon. But rest assured, CNN will make something out of it. We've been covering what Tulsi Gabbard revealed yesterday, the Director of National Intelligence revealing what she believes is credibly connecting the dots between what was done to Donald Trump as relates to intelligence, and saying that the Russian influence was obviously trying to get Hillary Clinton elected. But then we learned that Russia had all this damning evidence against Hillary that they never came out with, and that should have come out. We talked briefly about it yesterday. We read to you from page 17 of the report, but it's better when it's coming out of the mouth of the Director of National Intelligence.
The report goes into great detail about the information that Russia and Putin had on Hillary Clinton, which included possible criminal acts like secret meetings with multiple named U.S. religious organizations in which State Department officials offered, in exchange for supporting Secretary Clinton's campaign for the presidency, significant increases in financing from the State Department.
So the State Department was going to put money into churches and religious organizations that supported Hillary Clinton. And I guess we should maybe ask if the National Action Network run by Al Sharpton was one of those groups. I'd like to know the specifics on the groups.
They also had documents that showed the patronage of the State Department to State Department employees who would go and support Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign.
So people that work for the State Department might be working on the campaign too. That's kind of interesting, right?
There were high-level DNC emails that detailed evidence of Hillary's, quote, psycho-emotional problems.
I just love hearing that phrase, Hillary's psycho-emotional problems. We knew she would get upset when she'd hear about Bill's dalliances. Wasn't there a phone thrown at one point? I believe there was.
Uncontrolled fits of anger, aggression, and cheerfulness.
Wait a minute. Uncontrolled fits of anger, aggression, and cheerfulness. Uncontrolled fits of anger and aggression. I get that. When was Hillary Clinton cheerful? Seriously. Does anyone have any recollection of that happening? Oh, yeah, that's right. When they talked about Gaddafi dying. I think that was the only time we saw cheerfulness.
And that then Secretary Clinton was allegedly on a daily regimen of heavy tranquilizers.
Can we find out, is there any detail on what tranquilizers Hillary Clinton was on? Because remember a couple of weeks ago, or a couple months ago, when Elon Musk was still in the bromance with President Trump, when they were still best buds and Elon was showing up in the White House, it was everything the media could do to try and claim that Elon was on some kind of drugs. I think they specifically mentioned ketamine. But I'd like to know, what were the daily regimen of heavy tranquilizers?
Then CIA Director Brennan and the intelligence community mischaracterized intelligence and relied on dubious substandard sources to create a contrived false narrative that Putin developed a quote-unquote clear preference for Trump.
Well, if he had that, and I believe the Director of National Intelligence is spot on here. If Putin had a clear preference for Trump, do you not believe all of that information that she just read would not have come out? Do you not believe that all that would have been instantly put out? I think so. I truly believe that. The other weird thing here, does anyone remember Harry Reid? We talked about him the other day when we mentioned the thought that at one point Harry Reid had an idea, and I kind of liked it. I kind of liked when Harry Reid said that every member of Congress, every member of the House and Senate who gets money from somebody any company that donates significant money, that member of the House or Senate should probably have to wear a patch, like NASCAR drivers do, have a patch on their jacket that shows who gave money to them. I kind of like that. But let's go back to Harry Reid. In July of 2016, before Donald Trump was elected, this was at the DNC in Philadelphia. Harry Reid on CNN. And this is actually his words.
And what I've suggested, if now, because he's the nominee for the party, and he's entitled to briefings from the CIA, for example, I said publicly, give him fake briefings. Pretend you're briefing him. Don't tell him anything that you don't want to get out.
But as a Republican nominee, isn't he entitled to get those briefings?
Give him fake briefings.
What does that even mean?
It means they'll tell him stuff. He won't know the difference.
You're basically telling the intelligence community to lie to him.
No, you know, I'm not going to lie to you, but I just don't have to tell you everything. I said publicly, give him fake briefings.
That was Manu Raju back in 2016 when he was just like breaking in on CNN. Give him fake briefings. That was the idea before the election happened. That was the idea before November of that year. And then when November of that year happened, do you not think that Harry Reid was running around going, hey, don't give him any real briefings. I hope you guys haven't been telling Trump any of the real stuff. Let's not let him know. These people have always been this way. One of the more remarkable, I just have one of those memories that can't forget this kind of stuff. Really interesting stuff. All right, the phones are absolutely on fire today. Let's check in with some of the fabulous Chris Plante listeners. Let's talk to Dan in Chicago. Hello, Dan. Welcome to the Chris Plante Show. Dan, are you in your car? Uh-oh. I heard what sounded like the car dinging as you're getting in and out. Let's put Dan on hold. We'll come back to him. Let's talk to Ross. No, I'm sorry. I got that wrong. Let's talk to Jerry in Arkansas. Hello, Jerry. Welcome to the Chris Plante Show.
Good morning, Michael.
How are you, sir?
Pretty good, but, you know, every day that passes, I'm starting to think maybe the biggest problem we have, nobody is addressing. Something's got to be done about all of these judges that are out of control. That FISA panel, is that 7 or 5 judges?
I have to go back and check. I think it's 5, but I could be wrong.
Okay.
Don't quote me on that.
We've known for at least 2 years that they were absolutely lied to. At least 2 years, probably longer than that. Would you agree?
Yeah, and we also know that if they were lied to and they didn't follow up on, previously had a D.C. judge call in and say, you know, if you ask for a warrant and then you don't come back and tell me what you found if you didn't find the evidence, I got problems with it. Apparently, we didn't have any follow-up either.
Apparently not. You know, it was always my understanding that judges get really hacked off when you lie to them in court.
You would hope so.
But 5 judges have not called back a single witness to charge them with perjury or contempt of court. We need to be investigating these judges.
You're the second caller to say that, and I agree with both of you. And I also need to double-check on the anonymity, the secrecy of the FISA court. That's one of the things that bothers me as well, Jerry. I understand the need to have it, but it says foreign. The first word of the FISA acronym is foreign. Foreign information. It's not domestic, but so it seems like it went the other direction as well. Thank you, Jerry. Let's go to Adrian in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Hello, Adrian. Welcome to the Chris Plante Show.
Good morning, Michael.
What's up?
Just a quick question for you. I don't know if you've heard anything about this or not. I know I haven't, but do you happen to be aware if the Department of Justice has revoked the passports of Barack Obama, Comey, Hillbilly Clinton, and these other scoundrels? Because personally, I believe them all to be a high flight risk.
Well, I honestly don't think they would do that just yet. I mean, that would be a very serious indicator that there's a big indictment coming down. And I think that would be tipping the hand of the DOJ. At this point, we know where those people are at all times. And if they left the country, I'm sure that's an admission of guilt, too. It's one thing to plead the fifth. It's another to say, okay, we're out of here. But I don't think that's happening yet. Interesting take on it. We'll see what happens. Let us get to Randy in Arkansas. Randy, welcome to the Chris Plant Show.
Thank you. I'm so glad, Michael, you're on today. I love hearing you, but I only hear you when you sub for somebody. So,
well, thank you for saying that. That's
glad
very
to get
nice.
through.
What's on your mind?
I tell you, I heard Harry Reid. Well, what I called about was, as the Democrats do crazier and crazier things and things that are offensive to the public, I have to start wondering, Chris talks about how they started a civil war in Fort Sumter, and I have to wonder, are they trying to start another civil war? Or asking another way, if you were going to try to start a civil war, what would you do different than the things they're doing?
That's a good question. I do get that feeling when I hear some of the idiotic statements out of the mouths of people like Jasmine Crockett, and she is lined up to be one of the Democrats who say the darndest things coming up later in the show. But that's a good question. The thing that makes me feel better about a civil war not breaking out in this country, Randy, is in the last election, in the very last election of Donald Trump, we saw huge numbers of voters in typically Democrat communities of color come over and vote for Donald Trump. And I think that's a great indicator that there is a sanity in this country and people won't jump on that kind of attempt to separate us based on color. And I think that really is what some of the Democrats are doing. I don't have a real belief in my heart that America's facing a civil war. Not that these people aren't trying to do it, because they play the race card every time they can. The Jasmine Crockett's, the candidate who's running in Minneapolis for mayor, his name escapes me. They're all playing the race card wherever they can. But I think America's a lot smarter than that. Just my take. I like to think people are smarter. Thank you, sir. Let's grab one more call here. Casper in Wisconsin. Hello, Casper. Welcome.
Thank you, sir. I believe that the statement, the uncontrolled fits of anger and cheerfulness, might be the Russians lost in translation, but pretty much saying bipolar or mental case. That's what bipolar is. It's happy, low, and maybe in Russian language, bipolar isn't a word. So I was thinking that's what I thought they were trying to get to say.
I have a brother who is fluent in Russian. My brother Gregory, who writes for the Wall Street Journal on occasion, he's a master of languages. It always amazes me. I'm going to ask him if perhaps there is a Russian word that, if translated, could kind of mirror a diagnosis of bipolar or some kind of psychosis. I'll get into that. I'll see if I can reach him during the break. But thank you. That's very interesting. What did the Russians really say about Hillary, and who did the translations? Maybe there's even something worse in there that we will need to see. All right, thank you, Casper. I'm stepping aside, taking a break. It's Mike Opelka. I'm in for Chris Plant, right here on the Chris Plant Show. It is the Chris Plant Show on this Thursday, July 24th, the second to last Thursday of July. Next week is the 31st. It's a very long month here in the nation's capital. Just a quick update. Many of you asked, how did my nephew do yesterday in his second round of the D.C. Open tennis tournament? Sadly, Riley lost to former number one and perennial top 20, Daniil Medvedev. So on to the next round. Go America. We still have a lot of Americans doing well in that tournament. A lot of Americans. Taylor Fritz, Francis Tiafoe, among them, some of my nephew's cohorts in his days in the young USTA program. Love to support our Americans when they are on the international sports stage. Going back to something I teased earlier, Democrats say the darndest things. I love it when Democrats, if they start talking, just keep the microphone hot, keep the camera rolling, because eventually they're going to say something dumb. And there are reliable actors in this area. One of them is Mazie Hirono. Mazie rhymes with crazy. Remember, she's the one who wanted to cancel all the flights, and then she didn't know how she'd get home to Hawaii. But Mazie Hirono asking a question that relates to DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and whether or not it had been considered illegal or unconstitutional.
I do have one yes or no question for Mr. Hamilton. I know you're involved in DEI cases, but has any court opined that DEI is unconstitutional? Yes or no?
Yes.
Which court?
The United States Supreme Court.
I disagree with you because you're talking about the Harvard case. And
you can go read it yourself.
And if I do have,
you can go read it yourself, ma'am. You could actually read the case yourself, ma'am. Gene Hamilton, an attorney, an American lawyer who actually served inside the Justice Department and the Department of Homeland Security. Guy might know a little bit of something about what he's saying. He's from America's First Legal Foundation, testifying in front of a Senate committee hearing. And Mazie Hirono asks him flat out. He brings the receipts, chapter and verse. Yes, ma'am, the Supreme Court did. I disagree. You're talking about the Harvard case. Well, yeah, that was a case before the Supreme Court, and they found that the DEI thing, not good. Not good. I don't know what Hawaii's doing, but these people seem to have their jobs for life. Not a good thing. Let me grab a quick call here. Quick lightning round, short lightning round. Carlo in Arlington, Virginia, you have a final statement for this hour?
Yes, Mike. As far as this Russiagate, they say President Obama has immunity, but I wouldn't exactly call pushing Russiagate an official act. So could he still be held responsible for his part in it?
I think he's probably got enough of a legal wall around him that I think he'll be Teflon. He'll be untouchable. Now, Brennan, Comey, Hillary, that's a different subject. Or at least a boy can dream, can't he? It's Michael Pelkin for Chris Plant on The Chris Plant Show.